Donald Trump doing a lot of winning this week. Not only did he win re-election, but he got another big win courtesy of the Justice Department. DOJ moving to wind down Trump criminal cases before he takes office. The step complies with long-standing Justice Department policy that a sitting president can't be prosecuted. Two people familiar with the matter told NBC News. Justice Department officials have been evaluating how to wind down the two federal criminal cases against President-elect Donald Trump before he takes office to comply with long-standing department policy that a sitting president can't be prosecuted. Two people familiar with the matter tell NBC News. The latest discussions stand in contrast with the pre-election legal posture of special counsel Jack Smith. Yeah, who do you think he voted for? Who in recent weeks took significant steps in the election interference case against Trump without regard to the electoral calendar. But the sources say DOJ officials have come to grips with the fact that no trial is possible anytime soon in either the January 6th case or the classified documents matter, both of which are mired in legal issues that would likely prompt an appeal all the way to the Supreme Court, even if Trump had lost the election. Think about that. Think about, like, after January 6th, after the documents case, after the impeachments, after the Russia this, after the what's her name? What the hell's the woman's name? That's very disrespectful to forget her name. The one who said he grabbed her in a dressing room somewhere. I don't even remember her name.
Carol?
E. Jean Carroll.
Yeah,
that's it. Yeah, that's it.
That's it. Yeah.
How
can we forget her name? There's going to be a statue of her in Central Park before this is all over.
This is why our audience is 14.5% female, folks. Yes. But after all of that, he's back, man. He is back.
I mean, to be fair, the online audience skews that way, doesn't it?
Yeah, I guess so. That's our story anyway. Now that Trump will become president again, yes, DOJ officials see no room to pursue either criminal case against him and no point in continuing to litigate them in the weeks before he takes office, the people said. Sensible, inevitable, and unfortunate, said former federal prosecutor Chuck Rosenberg, an NBC News contributor. That slogan, also the new official motto of the Barack Obama Presidential Library. Sensible, inevitable, unfortunate. A user's guide to the 21st century. The DOJ's thinking on Trump's federal cases flows from a 2000 memo by the Justice Department's Office of Legal Counsel, which affirmed a Watergate-era conclusion that a prosecution of a sitting president would unduly interfere in a direct or formal sense with the conduct of the presidency. Well, that was very well timed, since that took place just before 9/11 and just before George Bush would go on to pursue numerous horrific crimes. That was a total coincidence, obviously, that it came out a year before 9/11. Obviously, they had no foresight of what was to come. That's just crazy talk. In light of the effect that an indictment would have
9/11 was safe and effective.
That's right. In light of the effect that an indictment would have on the operations of the executive branch, an impeachment proceeding is the only appropriate way to deal with a president while in office, the memo concluded, quoting the earlier conclusion. The practical reality, here's the money quote, the practical reality of Trump's electoral victory Tuesday is that he is unlikely to ever face legal consequences in relation to the serious federal crime charges brought against him by career Justice Department prosecutors working with career FBI agents.
We'll rally, stand up, be American.
There you go. That's the bottom line right there. And Fox News has some reporting that Jack Smith is apparently going to resign his post before Inauguration Day. This is not finalized yet, but here is reporting from Fox on this.
We have some news about special counsel Jack Smith, this man right here. Donald Trump said recently that he would fire Jack Smith, quote, within 2 seconds of taking office. Well, we found out that he may not have that opportunity. The reason is that the Department of Justice, where Jack Smith works, cannot prosecute a sitting president. Fox News is told that Jack Smith will be gone from his post as special counsel, meaning the cases will be gone before Trump takes the oath of office at noon on January 20th. This is the documents case, though that was dropped already by Judge Eileen Cannon back over the summer, and it's on appeal, but also this case for Trump's alleged efforts to try to overturn the 2020 election. So given the fact DOJ policy says you cannot prosecute a sitting president, expect Jack Smith cases to be done. The last case, and I'll end on this, is that Atlanta case that deals with the 2020 elections. That's a local Georgia case. We've seen over the last year how that has played out with Fonnie Willis, Nathan Wade. That has many problems, many different delays. So the bottom line for my story to all of you right now, Donald Trump's legal problems have essentially all gone away since he won last night. Harris.
There you have it. No more cases means no more Jack Smith at his post. And Donald Trump in the clear. You know, we talked in the last show about the very unpleasant task that stands before us now to try and use this moment to red pill some libs out of lib world.
Yeah.
I can't imagine this doesn't go a long way towards doing some of that work for us. I mean, look at the airtime devoted to these criminal cases against Trump. I mean, before the campaign really heated up, like before it became general election season, because there was no Democratic primary, this was really the talk of lib world for like an entire year, basically, from like mid-2023 to mid-2024.
Well, that was where we got the cowbell left thing.
Yeah, that was the cowbell left, exactly. That was in April 2023. So what I say, yeah, mid-2023 to mid-2024. Yeah, exactly. Starting with the arraignment in New York, which was spring of last year. That took up a lot of the oxygen. I would argue most of the oxygen in like very Democrat circles until the campaign started. And again, just all for absolutely nothing. Not only nothing, they didn't even really make a campaign issue out of it. I mean, how many ads did you see of Donald Trump being convicted as a felon? Very few, a little bit, but not much.
I mean, a lot of the press would hit on 34 felonies. They would hit on that.
But very little compared to what you would think they would try and like very little hay out of that compared to what you might think.
It felt like they were trying until like the last week or so when she did the ellipse speech. They were trying not to do the Hillary campaign. It seems like they were conscious of the fact that she leaned too heavily into disqualifying Trump and not enough into qualifying herself.
Right.
So I think that's why they didn't hit that as much as you might have thought they would. But in their closing argument, they went all in on January 6th. I mean, they gave her closing speech at the same site.
That's right. You watched that one. I didn't because we covered it on Jimmy's show.
I did watch that one. And as I said, at the time, that's about as good a speech as I've ever seen Kamala Harris give. She's effective when she's rehearsed, prepared, scripted. As soon as you take the script away from her, off into the stratosphere. The speech, the concession speech she gave, it was competent. It was just boring to watch. She gave the libs their little dog whistles and we are conceding the election. You know, supposed
that means
Trump's people. It is interesting, and a lot of our coverage tonight touches on this. It's fascinating. This is why I try not to burn my lib listening posts, because there are things about their conversations you're just not going to pick up from the trending tweets.
Right.
Like just knowing people who are not high profile and just listening to what they say amongst themselves. At first, there was just the shock. Oh, I'm in such grief. I'm in mourning. There was that. And then now you're seeing this kind of oscillation between trying to look at what was wrong with Kamala and what's wrong with the Democratic Party. And, there's a little bit of conversation about the Bernie thing, not with the rank and file libs, though. But what you're seeing is they're going back to their comfort zone. Overall, there's this moment where they might have thought about it, but they're going back to, she lost because she's a woman. She lost because she's a woman. There's no other reason. What possible reason could there be beyond that for a candidate that nobody voted for in a primary? Of course it's because she's a woman. There could be inflation, wrong track numbers, terrible, verge of World War III. But what reason could there be other than her being a woman? And what's really interesting is they're not saying racism all that much, a little bit. They're mostly leaning into the sexism because too many brown people voted for Trump. Like they know that they can't say that without that being thrown back in their face. So they're really leaning into that she's a woman.
I mean, with a wave election, which you could safely call this a wave election, there's never 1, 2, or 3 things. There's not even a list of 5 things that you can say, but for this, it would have gone the other way. It was such a sweeping victory that you really have to look back and tell the story of how you got there. And the story of how you got there really begins with Barack Obama failing to deliver justice for the perpetrators of the financial crisis, failing to end the wars he promised to end, and failing to deliver that broad-based economic empowerment that he promised. So that's one story arc of the failure of Obama, both during his presidency and then his clinging to power in his post-presidency.
Well, and I think in hindsight, that's going to be very clear to historians. I think that is the way this whole period will be viewed.
Absolutely.
That there was a tremendous opportunity for the left to form a pretty enduring majority, and Obama just lit it on fire.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, there's that story arc, and then the second story arc is kind of a subset of the first one, which is the systematic destruction of the Bernie Sanders movement, which could have come after the Obama movement if they allowed it to. Right? In a sense, those are one story. It's kind of one story with a slight spin-off. But that's the story. And there are not 1, 2, or 3 moments in that story that you could really point to. It's all of a piece. Who did Obama elevate as president? Hillary Clinton and Joe Biden. He gave Hillary Clinton Secretary of State for no reason. He was under no obligation to do that. He owed her nothing. He blew her out in the primary. She ran a racist campaign against him. He did not have to give her any kind of post in his administration whatsoever. It was ridiculous. And he made Biden his VP for opportunistic reasons because he wanted to have a white sort of beer drinker on the ticket so that the Midwest was comfortable voting for a black man. Right. He put him on there because he's a white racist.
Yeah.
They became your next 2 nominees. Neither of them had any real business running for president. The only reason Biden won was because of a fluke pandemic that really upended everything, and Trump just pretended it wasn't happening. So that created a vacuum for Biden to win once. But Biden was too old to run again, and so the VP pick was very important. Who he chose for vice president is very important because all the Democrats have is identity politics. He promised a woman. Because the Democratic establishment wanted Kamala in 2020, he figured he'll give it to her. That set you up for a nightmare worst-case scenario where he has a meltdown a few months before the election. You got no choice but to give her the ball. She was in no position to finish the game, and she couldn't do it. I mean, that is a whole narrative of fuck-ups. It was over a decade of bad decision after bad decision after bad decision. You can't point to one thing and say, I mean, even if you think there's sexism, or you can't point to one thing, it's because she's a woman. Because she's this, that. This was not, if 1 or 2, 3 things had been different, we'd have won. No, you were nowhere close. And the reason you were nowhere close is because of almost 20 years of consistent and deliberate failure. I would argue. Deliberate failure. They destroyed the Bernie movement on purpose, which we'll get to later.
Right. Which is why anyone, we knew this was going to happen when we made predictions. Some people can't separate predictions from wishes.
Yeah.
We come out of the Bernie movement. The only people who perhaps derive as much pleasure from this as actual Trump supporters are former Bernie supporters who Dem exited.
Right.
Like we take more pleasure in it because this is a bone-deep vindication, going back to a series of betrayals that we're never really going to get over. Frankly, we're always going to be angry about 2016 and 2020. So when we see a result like this, we hear Chuck Schumer saying, for every blue collar worker we lose, we're going to pick up 2 Republicans in the suburbs. We think of every lib thinking that Hillary was going to win, who gleefully told us we don't need you, who gleefully told us, well, you're just going to be left behind then. You can get on board or you can get left behind. That's when this happens. When this happened, every person who, after the Democratic Party, cheated to make Hillary the nominee, and then in 2020, Obama did his Monday Night Massacre right before Super Tuesday to knock Bernie out of contention. We look at this, and it's vindication of everything we said, because we said, I think, speaking for myself, I can speak for millions of others. We said, long term, you're not going to be able to win without us. You have lost the next logical evolution of the party. You've lost a generation by doing this. And that's exactly what happened. 2020 was a fluke. Trump would have won again.
Of course. Of course. In a crisis, people flock to a leader. They flock to authority. Trump would have gotten 100 million votes if he didn't pretend the crisis wasn't happening, which is what he did. He didn't want to deal with it. That's why Fauci lasted as long as he did. Trump wanted nothing to do with it, so he did not strike people as a leader. That's why they voted for Biden, because they say we gotta rally behind somebody, and this guy's pretending that we're not walking around with masks and like.
What are you talking about? I like COVID. I put COVID on my hot dog with fucking mustard.
Yeah,
I'm fine.
But other than that, I mean, absent that, of course Trump would have won. Of course Trump would have won in a landslide that year. And I think most
was
people
just a
in the
little
party
COVID
knew that.
fluke.
Yeah.
And now look what happened in the next election. The Democrats decided to just take democracy out of their party entirely.
Right.
They decided they were going to nominate Hillary 2 years before the primaries. And they did not care what their voters wanted. Emphatically, not only did they not care what their voters wanted, they shamed and abused the voters who supported Sanders.
Right.
Bernie bros, right? The majority were women, but we were all Bernie bros. His coalition was majority non-white, but we're all Bernie bros. All the media smearing us as racists and sexists. Come on, man. You lost. Look how much passion we have for politics. We have so much passion for politics. We fell ass backwards into being professional political commentators.
Right.
This was like, when we started out, it was a form of activism.
Right.
That's how much passion we have for it, because we worked so hard at it, we accidentally succeeded at it. We never really set out to do that. All that passion could have been inside the Democratic Party.
Yep.
And instead, it's all outside the party.
Yep. That's correct.
Please clap.